Okay, so welcome to our React router lecture here at Lambda School. Today we're going to be going over a few things that are going to help sort of cement in some ideas of kind of this idea that we've been building these single page applications, or that you will be building these single page applications. So traditionally in building a React, or not a React, I'm sorry. Traditionally, when websites were sort of becoming more and more popular, you'd have something that looked more like this traditional page life cycle. And what it is your application basically all lived on a server somewhere, and you guys are going to be building server-side applications, in Node. But imagine each one of these lines is like an HTML file. Okay, and then each one of these is like its own, maybe just a smaller template, or maybe it's a larger template, or maybe it's like a giant web page, okay? So let's say a user is interacting with that web page. What would happen is, instead of like dispatching out an action and going through Redux and doing that whole thing on the client, what would happen is the client would request some sort of information from the server, and then the server would gather that information, check if there's authentication needed or anything like that, and then return that information back to the web browser as an entire HTML document. And you can see the implications with this. So the first implication with this is that you have to store a bunch of these files somewhere on the server, and that once so because of that, you're going to have giant, applications. You're going to have giant programs that are massive in size, okay? And then the other implication with that is that it's going to be, slow in today's like standards. Another implication is that there's going to have to be some sort of page reload, because once a new HTML document is delivered to the browser, let's say this is Chrome, right? So once a new HTML document is delivered to the browser, it's going to re-render the entire page, and we have to go through the process of painting out all of your DOM elements. So do your DOM elements, so like your body tag and everything. So that's sort of the previous, like more archaic life cycle of an application. The benefits to this is you could write everything in the same language on the server. So you could write an entire application maybe in Java or in C# or whatever server-side language you'd like, but you'd have to have these like weird-looking HTML templates living in your code as like files somewhere back there, and then each one would get served up in this archaic fashion. And so it was always a request to the server, and it was always like receiving and fetching information. So now with the advancement of things like the V8 engine and Chrome's tooling for basically how content can be served up, we have a lot more powerful computational complexity added to our web browsers. So Chrome now has the ability to offload a lot of what the server was doing for us archaically. And when I say archaically, this is only the last 5 to 10 years where single page applications became a lot more popular. So they're still pretty new, but that's how everything is done today. Everything is built on these things called web applications that are single page applications. And so what I mean by that is when we request a web page that's built in the single page application style, so I'm going to put Chrome down here just to demonstrate this. So let's say we navigate to like Facebook's documentation, for example. We go to their React documentation. We're going to have an initial request that's going to do all of our compiling, our stack building and everything right here in the browser. We're going to just get this HTML document back, and we're going to be able to serve it up regularly. And there was this this sort of new way of like a new protocol for requesting data that we called AJAX that came with jQuery that you guys have been using Axios for in this last sprint. So now we can sort of request information from the server, and what gets served up is just simple JSON, as opposed to, having to re-render the entire page. So there's no more of this page reloading going on anymore. And the power of that is that we can have really rich, robust applications built in JavaScript that allow us to basically give all of the user interaction and interactivity that we would with a full-fledged desktop-like application right there in the browser. And we don't have to go and fetch data, reload the page, and send the data back. Now we just get back these objects, and with React, if something changes from the client, we're going to get back an object, and React uses the virtual DOM to render it to our original DOM, right? And so it's even faster because React goes and says, what are the least amount of steps that I need to take to just render only this portion of what's been requested or changed. So that is sort of why the world has moved towards single page applications today. All right, now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a principle that you may have never had to worry about in your entire life. And let's start by going to the React documentation. So let's just look for React Strap. You're going to be using React Strap for this sprint, by the way, but it's already built for you. And I think React Strap is really cool because it's using Bootstrap version 4. Okay, so if you notice up here in our browser URL, it says facebook.github.io/react/. Okay, so if we just go to the root, it's just going to take us straight over to code.facebook.com. So that's why, now we can see that it's sort of this idea of something that I said you may never had to worry about ever in your life is, specifying what content is going to be delivered up based on whatever your route is in your document, in your web browser here, okay? So now if we navigate through these docs, you can see, and it's funny because React is using a little bit more of an archaic, so we just exposed Facebook's old school methods of delivering an entire new HTML document on that page request. So anytime you want to go and make fun of them for their React tutorials not being built as single page, you can feel free to do so. I give you permission. So I can see the reason they're probably doing that are for purposes of search engine optimization and things like that, because those types of things are really difficult to accomplish in single page applications today. So there is trade-offs to using this one page application that you just get the data right away from the server, and then you don't have to reload it anymore. So okay, so in the React community, a few years ago, React Training is what they call themselves now. It's really just two open source dudes. I think it's 3 of them now, actually. They got together and they built what's called React Router. And that's what we're going to be talking today about exclusively. So React Router is in its version 4. And right there out of the box, it says it is learn once, route anywhere. So this is kind of I can talk about that in just a minute, that little play on words there. But what they give it as a tagline is declarative style routing for your web applications. And now that we have React, we can build web applications and native iOS and Android applications as well using React Native. But for this portion of the course, we're mainly interested in React Router's web routing. So you click on that and you can start to learn more about their philosophy in regards to what it is that they have built for us. And now what's cool about this has sort of become, because these two guys got together, they built React Router and the community was just all about it. This has become sort of the standard of you implementing a router in your React applications today. And so now that they're on version 4, and I believe they're out of beta for version 4, we have even more up-to-date, tools that we can use to navigate and browse our client-side applications. Because if we weren't navigating and browsing, then things then you wouldn't really be able to like distinguish what URL your content will be delivered at, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So really, what I'm talking about is sort of the why behind this React router. So one of the things that they did to go through version 4, and it's funny because they've only been around for a couple of years now, and they're already on their 4th version of this package. But one of the things that I highly recommend going and reading about their philosophy here of why it exists. But one of the things that they're going to tell you is, in this little caveat here, this little anecdote, is that they wanted to build something that actually played really, really nicely within the React ecosystem, as opposed to kind of implementing the React ecosystem inside of their React router package. Okay, so what's cool is you get sort of a lot of things out of the box that are super easy to set up and play around with, but then you get things that are a little bit more complex, a little bit more robust as your application evolves. And we're going to just touch on some of the high level, easy to get started stuff. So if you follow along with their little installation guide, this is going to be very similar to what you're doing with your projects today. You can either follow along with that, or you can just go straight into the mini sprint after this lecture, and you're going to get the same stuff. But you can see how easy it is to actually get a router set up in your application. And all it is just defining these declaratively. So every single route is going to have like a path that it matches. And then at that path, we want to return a component that's going to be rendered to the screen. And so you can see that path is about here. So when it's about, hit about. So give us the about component. And that's the most declarative you can say. This is the closest thing to like plain English that you can get, I believe, out of like a router implementation, because it just is declarative. It looks like React. It is React. It feels reactive. It's very, very user-friendly as far as like using it and implementing it into your applications. And then everything gets wrapped in what they call router, which is this idea of a browser router or a router. A browser router or a hash router. Okay, and I'll go over the difference between those two things in just a moment as well. So all they're doing is importing from React Router DOM the browser router, and then relabeling it as their entire router. So this is saying router is going to contain, well, we have some navigation here, so these links, all right, and then we have our actual router, or our routes that are specified very declaratively. So route at the exact path of / render this component home. So very, very important that we get the declarative style out of whatever package we're going to be using when we're building our React applications. All right, so now we can kind of play around with this in our code sandbox. So I went ahead and I installed the React Router DOM package by just searching for it and then clicking add package down here. And so now we can actually implement this and start playing around with some things and seeing kind of what the power is with this stuff. So if you notice up here, the sandbox gives us a URL where we can start browsing, and you can see that really nothing else happens at our route here, and it'll give us like a back and a forward. Okay, what's cool about this back and forward is they actually can work because of something inside of the JavaScript ecosystem, and that something is called window.history. Okay, this history object lives on the global JavaScript window object, and look at all the cool stuff we get with it. Now, I'm not going to go through much of this, but you can just see that right here, right now, we have an object that's stored in memory in our global window that's keeping track of where we've been and where we can potentially go within our back buttons. Okay, and so you can see that on the prototype of this history object that is chained to our window, we have a back method, a forward method, a go method, push state replace. So we have all these methods built into the global history, okay? Now, React Router has actually piggybacked off of that, and they call it browser history or browser router. And what that does is it basically re-implements that history object that JavaScript's window object gives us so that you can implement memory inside of your routes. So that as you navigate to and from, remember, we have one load of our HTML and our JavaScript and our CSS now. Okay, so that's all just going to happen once. We're not hitting the server again every time we need to re-render a page. We're actually given all that stuff up front, and then we can start to route and move around our application, clicking links and navigating within the URLs to certain places in the application that show specific content. For example, if I were to click on native on this page here, you would see that we changed our route to native. And core, it's going to be the same. You know, we're going to change declaratively where we want to go, and it's going to register that new content, and it's all going to be done in single page style. No more delivering up a new entire DOM HTML document every time you want to navigate between stuff. And then we have memory. So remember, we just went to native and came back to web. So if I click back, the back button in my browser, you should see that it's going to guide us right back to native, and then back and forth kind of where we want to go. Now forward, and this is implemented in like a stack type of manner. So like there's a stack data structure implementation under the hood with this. So if you just hover over that in your Chrome, you can see click to go back, hold to see history. So look at all the history of where we've been in our document. Now we're going to be re-implementing that on the client side by using React Router's awesome package here. Let's go back to the quick start called Browser Router. Okay, so all right, let's just dive in and let's get going with it. So before we actually dive into some code, I just wanted to reiterate this fact of what Browser Router is doing. And to demonstrate that, I can open up the DOM and I can go and highlight. They've built this in a React application. And so, but they've used production style deployment. So you can see there, all of their React components are labeled E or S or whatever. So don't let that bog you down. Just know that this is the browser router wrapper, that this router is right here. So they've wrapped their own little thing here. And you can notice, just like on the window.history, there's a history object here that looks very, very familiar. It looks very much the same as the window.history object that comes native with JavaScript. All right, so what this allows us to do is sort of piggyback off of that window.history object because it's implemented itself inside of the React Router package. And we can sort of implement that just out of the box with React Router. So, and look, it's just a property that exists out of the box on your application. And I can show you this example once we build a little application later on. But for now, just know that the history object sort of keeps track of where we've been and where we potentially could go within our application. And what I mean by that is, just like in the browser, how in every browser there's a back and forth, that's how all browsers are implemented, is using this window.history object that comes with whatever JavaScript engine the browser is built in. Uses that history object to keep track of these changes and move forward and back throughout your applications. Okay, so throughout your websites and things. All right, so now let's actually implement a router to our app here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, we can keep some of this stuff here, but I'm going to have hello actually become, we're not going to declare it here. We're going to actually return it as a route. So first things first, we need, just like in the documentation states, from React Router, we need browser router, we need route, and we need link. So link is going to be a component that browser router gives us it's basically going to wrap some text in an anchor tag. So an anchor tag being a DOM element that you can use to navigate to a different URL. And then route is going to be our declarative component from React Router that we use to set up and declare what our routes look like. And then browser router is needed to implement that browser history object that I just went over, okay? So we're going to pull in those three elements, just like the documentation shows, from React Router. And remember, we're using DOM for this project, okay? So we need browser router as router. And the reason we're redefining it here is just to make it look and feel a little bit cleaner. Instead of having to write browser router all over again, the package, the object that the React Router team built is called browser router. We're just relabeling it to router for our own, sake. And then link. So those are the three things you're going to need for this project from the React Router package. So now what we need to do is we need to register our app as a React Router app now. We need to give this history and pass down all of the important things from the history that come from browser router. So we're going to pass this browser router down to our app. And the way that we do that is by simply wrapping our app in a router component, just like you would in React. And so now, if I actually wrap this whole thing up, if everything's imported successfully, we have, may only have one child element. Okay, got ourselves a teeny bug here. I wonder if something going on with this. So router may only have one child element. I'm going to debug this and I'll be right back with you guys. All right, after a little bit of debugging, I found out that for whatever reason, our React router does not like to be rendered on the same line like this. So it's because just know that if we actually block it I think it's for all intents and purposes with the create React app. So once again, create React app causing more complication than it needs to. And that's just going to be part of the story sometimes. All right. So now that we have our application up and running, we can now tell if, and this is actually going to be pretty nested because of the way that things work. Let's see, app container, provider, connected router. Okay, so there we go. We can see that we have our router and we have that history object given to our application now. All right. So so we get some cool things out of it, and then we need to now start specifying our routes and everything. So let's get down to it. So now we can use route to declare what our application should look like, and I'm just going to do that right here inside of app. So first off, I'm going to make sure that we have something that's like an H1 tag that says to make sure that we're main app component, so that to make sure that we're aware of where we're at, like on our screen here. Okay, so now we can start thinking about what we want to build our app as, and then we can get to work actually declaring what our route situation is going to be. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to create a couple of just quick components on the fly, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm going to create oh no, we have Hello World already created. So I'm going to use Hello World as an example of a path, okay? So a component that we can use. And you know that Hello World exists down here in our application, and it's just asking for a name, and then we render out that name I'm going to change this to be explicitly set to world, and then we're not even going to worry about passing it in anything. So save that. So now when this component gets rendered, it's going to render as hello world for us. So just to check to see if that actually works, I'm going to just render it on the fly, and look, we've got our hello world. So now I need to specify this route to hello world to make sure that things work the way they should. So first things first, I'm going to declare our route, and it itself is just a React component, okay? And it's self-closing because it's just, all it is we're just declaring what our route is. Now notice router is wrapping route, and because of that, because router is wrapping app, and that's what we have right here. So because of that, we actually get, and we're able to use our route declaration here. If we didn't wrap this, you could still use it, but you're not going to gain that history object as a prop for any of your application. So just think of this router that we pull from browser router as sort of a way now to store information about where we've been and where we're going and what content needs to be delivered up at which URL. All right. So when we declare a route, we also declare a path with it. And we're going to just say this is our route, because that's going to match this up here. I'm not sure if you guys can see where I'm pointing to, but it's up here in this area. So pay attention to this. So now this is going to be our route route. Route is hard to say. And when route is delivered, we're going to deliver up component as hello world and check it out. So now we're using React Router to deliver up our component, which is being pulled in as hello. And just to reiterate this point, we can now create a new component, and I'm just going to do this on the fly. Let's see, I'll just do it underneath our app, and we're just going to say, const Ryan equals a component, and that's going to return out just the h1 Ryan. Okay, so this is implicitly returning out just a single DOM element. So if I were to pass this underneath main component here, or our main app h1, I could say Ryan, and we should just render out an h1 tag. So pretty trivial. You guys have seen this quite a few times already. But now let's do this declaratively with our React router. So if I go and I say route is the path of Ryan, let's not capitalize it, let's keep it lowercase, then component will equal Ryan. Okay, and just as expected, we're hitting the home route, so we're not hitting this path, and so because of that, Ryan's not being rendered. But if I type Ryan into the browser, we should be able to navigate to it. And there we go. There you see it's rendering Ryan for us. Now, what's interesting here is you can see that what's going on is we're also rendering our hello component, our hello world component that we're pulling in from up here. All right. Now, because this is our root component, to specify that our path is only going to be a / and nothing after it, then we can use a property that's given to us called exact, and that comes from the React API itself. So you can see that my hello component went away. I'm actually going to just take this out, and I'm going to save it. And so now if I go back to the root, it's only hello world, and if I go over to Ryan and I render it, it's going to be Ryan. Now, the reason that happened, that it rendered out both of them on Ryan path, is because this condition right here was what hit true. This evaluated to a true condition. So path in essence is / there's also a Ryan attached to it. So there's a regular expression, a regex operation that happens under the hood from React Router with these path props that you pass to it. So when you pass it a string, it's going to take it, it's going to parse it, and it's going to just say, hey, we're looking for this string. If you specify exact on that, then what that's going to do is going to say, I don't care if there's anything else that comes after this. Sorry about that. If there's anything else that comes after this, I don't care about it. I'm only going to render this component hello when the path is here. So this is just a true or a false, this exact property. And if it exists, it's going to do exactly what it's saying. So once again, we have some declarative style programming here where we're saying exact path is set to root, and because of that, we're going to render hello. Otherwise, it would render out both of them. So now we have history. Okay, so let's open up our app and let's actually look at the history that's going on under the hood. And part of your mini sprint today is going to be involved with you pulling open your application and looking at the history. So if you look at this history object now, you can see with router where we've been and where we're going. So let's see here. So if we go back, I don't want to get too deep into this. I just want to see like where the location is. It's weird that it's doing some hashing for this stuff, for the path name and everything. And part of this may be implicated, or like it's a little bit, implicated because of the fact that we're using create React app, or sorry, not create React app. We're using the whatchamacallit, Code Sandbox. So, okay, so we won't go too far into it, but just know that with this history, you can see we have, let's see, I wanted to be able to pull this open and just show you right away where we're keeping track of what's on the stack here. So, because the length is 6, like we've navigated. So if I were to navigate and go forward and back, if I were to go home now, that should have some sort of updates. But I think it's because we're using Code Sandbox for this, but it's sort of abstracting it a little bit from us. But either way, you can see now that we have access to our app. So if we wanted to build another path, we could do so pretty easily. And let's say that we wanted to build this Ryan. Let's say that Ryan has some friends, and we're going to say friends. Friends doesn't exist yet, but we're going to build it right now. I'm going to build up here at the top. I'm going to set an object or an array. And we'll just give some random names here, like Tommy, Billy, all my favorite like comedic performances. Lloyd Christmas, right? Harry. And let's do one more, like comedy. So we have Tommy Boy, Tom Callahan, Billy Madison, Lloyd, and Harry from Dumb and Dumber. And then who's my other friend growing up? Geez, let's just leave it at that because I don't want to spend more time than I need to for this. So now let's create our friends component to satisfy this error that's bugging out on us. So inside of friends, we're going to say Ryan's friends.map. And for each friend in the friends array, we're going to then return a list element with a key that equals the friend and then the friend itself. Unexpected token, let's see, on 29. Let me change this up because it's got to be all wrapped in a UL. Let's do this. UL since we're rendering out a bunch of list items, we probably want a UL to contain them in. Okay, so now we've set it up to where if we hit friends, we can see all of Ryan's friends. So if I navigate there, we should see a list of the friends. So you can start to see kind of what is cool about this, but we don't really have much because we have to type in our URL every single way. But at least now I was able to show you that we have 3 routes that we can specifically hit to navigate through our application. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a navigation component. And that navigation component is going to actually give us the ability to link through some things. So we're going to return out a div, okay? And that div is going to contain our last piece from React Router, which is this link, okay? Okay, and then link is going to have a name, each one of these. So we're going to go to home. We're going to go to we're going to go to Ryan, and then we're going to go to friends to list all of the friends. Okay. Now we need to specify where these routes take us. So if we go back to home, our home component here, in our little fake browser that doesn't give us what we want when we look at it sometimes. So we can actually pass in this navigation to our application. So if I pass in navigation as such, it's in our application, but now it's saying, cannot read property path name of undefined. And that's because React Router is expecting a prop to be given to these links. And that prop is going to be path. Okay, so for this first one, our path, you can guess it, it's going to be home. It's going to be the root. For the second one, it's pretty explanatory from here. And then our third one, so now, and my guess is maybe it needs the specific path name, but let's go and check the React Router documentation. Oh, so that's my problem. I used path and I didn't use to. It's expecting a to prop, not a path prop. So that's my fault. So to, and that you don't get more declarative than that. Link to home, the root, okay? And link to Ryan, link to friends. When it's there, display those components as described up here. Okay, so now let's do some styles here, and let's say const link styles equals an object, and we're going to write this in JavaScript. So let's give it some padding, just because I don't like the way it looks. So to rem, and let's say text decoration, none, to make it look less ugly. So if I save that and I give these, let's say right here, so each one of these can get their own class name, which is kind of fun. Oh no, we're going to do styles for each of them. So do their own inline style and a style tag, and that's going to equal link styles. So now we got some padding there. No more underline on the text, so it looks a little better. Okay, so this is the last and final piece of React Router as far as the components that we're pulling in to use from it goes. So if I click here, we're going to navigate to home. If I click to Ryan, it should navigate to Ryan. And if I click to friends, we're right there to friends. All right. So one thing that I wanted to actually piggyback on is this idea of a single friend. Okay. So one thing we can do is we can actually, I can show you something that's cool here. Okay. So now let's say we need some dynamic sort of routing. So anything that comes after friends is going to be just like a friend name. Okay. So now what we can do is basically navigate to a single friend and just display that friend's information. So if we go to Ryan, or friends, I'm sorry, and we can click on these friends, we're going to change this list element to a link element and say to, and then give it the path, friends slash, and then right here, for the whole world to see, we could actually do this with template literal strings. So for the whole world to see, we can go to, and we wanted to go slash friends slash, and then slug on the friend name. So the friend name that comes here will be each individual friend. So we're going to use template literal syntax and a variable. And we have, oh, it's not an actual li, it is link. Sorry, got to finish our code here. Whoops. And then what else? Maybe this all needs to be inside of curly braces, and it did, and we're gonna take these styles and piggyback off of our styles. And now we have this list of friends that we deliver up, and then it should just be a single friend component. So we're gonna build that real quick. So we have our friends, and this is sort of the extra credit bonusy stuff with this. So don't feel too bad. I'm just demonstrating some of the power that React Router gives us. So don't feel too bad if you don't if you're lost a little bit. This is actually doing a little bit more, complicated stuff. So what I want to do here is give a div, and that div is going to come in and it's going to display something for us. So if I click on Tommy, you can see that we navigated, and I'm actually going to say friend dot to lower case. And the reason, oh, not slash, dot. So that way, in the URL, when you click on Tommy, it's going to be just lowercase Tommy, Billy, Lloyd, and Harry. And then you can see, oh, so I don't have so there's some complications with this. So let's go back, but I just wanted to demonstrate. And if I click Ryan, home, Ryan, friends, and then if I move forward, there's some complications with what we're doing here, but this is just demonstrating this point and sort of driving home that we can have nested routing. So Billy, Lloyd, Tommy, okay. So I want to look at this and I want to see what we can pull off of Tommy to display it as. So if I look at this in React, I'm hoping that we can see this stuff real quick, because we're going to be displaying each individual friend as it comes about. So no, I don't want to go there. Where did we get to here? Sandbox is implementing all this stuff. It's going to be hard to demonstrate this, but I believe I can do something like this, just check out this match property. Oh, not in friends. I want to do that instead of friend. And I want to console log that object. So this is something that's given to us from React Router. So just bear with me. Oh, whoops. Okay. And let me look at the console. Okay, there it is. So on here, on this match property, we have a params object, and you can see its name, Tommy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to display that because, okay, and that exists because it came through on the route parameter. So this is being able to pull off what comes in the route parameter here as Tommy. It's being able to pull that information off, and we can use it to display, which page we're at. So in here, I can say the page we are at is match.params.name is what I believe, because we named it, we labeled it name up here in our slug. All right. Okay, so let's go to friends, and the name that we are at is Harry, Lloyd, Billy, Tommy. So pretty cool, powerful stuff you can do there to swap out your um, stuff there. But what, yeah, so what I want to do is I don't like that it's lowercase now. And so I believe, well, I guess I don't want to go into ES8 or anything. There is a capitalized like function that's not all, like converting it all the way to uppercase. But yeah, what we would have to do if we wanted to uppercase this is basically pull it out, pull off the top string, change that to uppercase, and then add it back together. And that's just a little bit of heavy algorithmic stuff. Okay, I've given you guys a lot. There's a lot going on here. And don't worry, because I'm going to give you this Code Sandbox link inside of your README today, so you can reference it as a guide if you'd like. Just know that the things that we're concerned about with this, just to reiterate and go over it before I release your mini sprint to you, are using the 3 pieces that you're going to need to build a router inside of your application. Those are browser router, route, and link. We use browser router to wrap up our application. We use route to declare what our routes are going to be throughout our application. And then we use link to navigate to different routes within our application. And your application that you're going to be building for your mini sprint is going to look a lot like this. And then you're going to learn everything you can out of it so that you can implement it in React and Redux. So I hope you really enjoyed this little presentation. I love React Router. I really love React Router 4. I've just barely started to tap the surface as to what the power is that exists within it. And I highly recommend doing whatever it takes on your own to research these principles, so that you become more and more comfortable with them as you continue your process and grow as developers. So happy coding. I hope everything goes really well for you, and I hope you're able to continue to flourish. So we'll talk to you guys later.